Deep in the wilderness of Lapland, former Finnish commando Korpi has decided to leave the war behind him. With his loyal dog by his side and a strong horse, Korpi keeps panning for gold at the river, not giving up until he gets just a tiny speck of gold that indicates he is on the right track. Now he has confirmation. Korpi begins digging holes all over the area while ignoring all the planes that fly above him, going to a war he doesn't want anything to do with. After many days of digging pointless holes, he finally finds a proper gold deposit and cries with happiness. He breaks the huge deposit into a hefty amount of nuggets and hides them in his tent, staying up all night to make sure nobody robs him. The next morning, Korpi puts all the gold in a bag and leaves on his horse, the dog following him closely. A few hours later, Korpi finds a group of Nazi soldiers led by General Bruno. They have a dangerous tank with them and a truck full of kidnapped women who Soldier Wolf keeps taking advantage of. Korpi just keeps on riding, exchanging a glance with Bruno but otherwise ignoring them all. Wolf wants to shoot him, but Bruno stops him, saying the man is to his death anyway. As Korpi continues to ride down the road, he begins encountering all the bodies the Nazis left behind, but he isn't disturbed. Eventually he comes across a truck with 4 more soldiers, who order him to get off the horse. They inspect the bags and find the gold, thinking they can keep it. So Korpi begins thinking ahead and tells his dog to run away. One of the soldiers tries to shoot the dog, but thankfully the poor animal moves out of the way pretty quickly. Next, the soldier calls Korpi grandpa and tries to shoot him too, but Korpi takes his knife and with a quick movement stabs him in the head for an instant kill. The other soldiers try to fight him for revenge, but Korpi moves fast and fights them hand to hand, stabbing them with his knife and using the bodies as shields when someone tries to shoot him. He beats one soldier up with a helmet, and when the last one tries to get him from behind, Korpi twists his arm and kills him with his own gun. Bruno and the others hear the shots and come back to check, only to find the massacre on the ground and Korpi gone. When Bruno checks one of the bodies, he finds a gold nugget the soldier had hidden in his pocket and decides they should go after Korpi. A few moments later, the Nazis find Korpi on the road and the tank begins shooting at him. Korpi makes his horse gain speed and successfully dodges all the shots, only to accidentally enter a minefield. Bruno orders his men to stop the fire and waits until Korpi steps on a mine, laughing because he thinks he got an easy win. However, the horse got most of the explosion, so Korpi is wounded but still alive. He wakes up with a dizzy head and says goodbye to his horse before getting ready to counterattack. The Nazis are coming closer, so first Korpi picks up the gold that fell out of the bag. Seeing this, Bruno makes his vehicle stop and waits for Korpi to be done so they don't have to risk their lives picking the gold themselves. Once Korpi is finished, Bruno orders his soldiers to shoot, but Korpi is ready with the gold. He also picked up a rock, which he throws at a mine to make it explode. The resulting smoke provides good cover, and when the Nazis open fire, Korpi uses his panning plate as a shield. After a few minutes of indiscriminate fire, Bruno sends out a young soldier to check on Korpi, but he's hit in the face with a mine and the explosion kills him. Next, Bruno sends 2 soldiers to go down the sides of the road, but they both quickly step on mines. When the wind clears the smoke, they discover Korpi is gone. Wanting to go after him, Bruno orders for 2 women to walk ahead as a safety check. Wolf chooses the most scared ones. This causes Ano to volunteer in their place. Meanwhile, Bruno checks the area and finds Korpi's dog tag. Moments later, The group keeps on advancing, with the two women tied up in front of the vehicles. Bruno uses the radio on the tank to ask for information about Corby and gets some shocking news. Their higher-ups tell them they should quit chasing him and that they're lucky not to be already dead. It turns out Corby was the most feared commando in Finnish history, and nobody wants to mess with him. He fought in the Winter War and lost his home and his family to the Russians. So he became a ruthless, vengeful soldier who took orders from no one. Meanwhile, Corby keeps going until he finds a burnt truck with a body inside. Using it for cover, he lies down behind it and proceeds to take care of his wounds, removing any bullets with his knife and covering the holes with dirt. Suddenly, his dog shows up, but the little guy is still obedient and watches Corby from afar. Eventually, Corby falls asleep, only to wake up a few hours later when he hears some noise. The Nazis are here, and they've acquired dogs to track Corby's scent. Corby immediately hides under the burnt truck and watches the Nazis passing by, noticing the dogs are onto him. He waits until the last truck drives by and rolls under it, immediately hanging onto it so he's taken along. Then he punctures the fuel tank, and now the falling gas gets in the way of the dog's noses, making it impossible to track his scent anymore. The soldiers stop to make a new plan, so Corby tries to run away. Unfortunately, the dogs immediately see him and bark to reveal his presence. A soldier manages to shoot Corby in the leg, but he keeps going, so Bruno sends the dogs after him. Corby doesn't hesitate to light up a match to get a fire going on his gas-covered clothes, scaring the dogs away. The soldiers come after him next, so Corby jumps into a lake. Bruno makes his men wait for Corby to come out to breathe, which takes a long while because he has excellent lungs. When Corby's head finally peeks out of the water, the soldiers immediately shoot, and the blood that appears on the water makes them assume they got him. 3 soldiers get on a boat and reach the middle of the lake, intending to find the gold. However, as soon as a soldier jumps into the water, Corby surprises him from behind and kills him with his knife. When only blood appears on the surface, Bruno sends the second soldier underwater, but again only blood resurfaces. The third soldier should go next, but he is terrified and starts going away in the boat. Since this is counted as betrayal, Wolf shoots him. This gives Corby the chance to steal the body and uses it as cover as he runs away. So the soldiers open fire for nothing. At that moment, Corby's dog shows up and cries because it can't cross the water to follow its master. But Bruno sees his next plan. After hours of walking, Corby finally makes it to the closest town, but he's devastated to discover it's burning down against the night sky. Too tired to keep going, he decides to rest inside a destroyed gas station and tries to sleep while dealing with the pain from his leg, which makes him have visions of the day he lost his family. Unfortunately, when he manages to fall asleep, he immediately is woken up by some barking. Corby comes out to reunite with his dog, only to discover there is a lit dynamite stick attached to his collar. He immediately takes it away and throws it, but it explodes so close that Corby is still knocked down to the ground. Then he is found by Bruno, Wolf, and Schutz, who brings some rope to tie him to a sign. Corby never says a word, and out of respect for such a great opponent, Schutz takes off his hat. Bruno and Wolf quickly follow his example. Before they leave with the bag of gold, Bruno mocks him by leaving a nugget in Corby's pocket for his troubles. Once they are gone, Corby stays stubborn and steps on a nail on the sign to keep his body up. He also goes as far as pushing his leg wound onto a second nail. It is painful, but it keeps him alive all night long with his dog still waiting next to him. In the morning, a plane lands next to the station, and the shaking it causes makes the sign bend and drop Corby to the ground. Two pilots come out looking for gas, and one of them finds Corby and the dog, who won't stop barking. The second pilot tells him to shoot them both, but when the man hesitates, Corby kicks him in the legs, and the man falls, dying when he hits his head on some debris. The dog won't stop barking, so the first pilot comes to check on them, giving Corby the chance to surprise him from behind by knocking him out with a brick. Corby thinks there's no hope left for him and buries the nugget Bruno left him, but at that moment the second pilot starts wiggling, revealing he's still alive. Realizing the pilot can be useful with the plane, Corby takes his gold back to make a plan. As the pilot watches with horror, Corby begins taking out all the bullets and pieces of metal from his wounds. Then he cauterizes them with fire and closes them up with wire before cleaning them up with gas. Then he and the pilot go away on the plane, leaving the dog behind. Sometime later, the Nazis must pause their journey when they find a crashed plane blocking the road. Wolf and Schutz approach the plane and find the pilot dead inside. But most surprisingly, Wolf's rope is around his neck. Recognizing this is a trap, Bruno finally understands how terrifying Corby is and orders his men to leave immediately. Two soldiers travel in the truck with the women, and Ano laughs when she hears them talk about what's going on. She explains they won't be able to do what hundreds of Russians died trying, and that Corby isn't literally immortal. He just refuses to die. In Finnish they call it sisu, which refers to a white-knuckled form of courage and unimaginable determination. Corby never gives up, so Ano considers all the Nazis dead soon. Suddenly one of the soldiers falls dead, and when the other looks outside, he is dragged out of the truck and falls to the ground, where he is run over by the incoming tank. Ano tries to steal the weapon from the dead soldier, but at that moment Corby enters the truck and grabs the weapon first. When he notices that these are innocent victims, he lets Ano keep it. Next, Corby climbs on top of that truck and kills the driver by stabbing him through the roof. Then he pulls the body out so Ano can take over the wheel. Then she drives the truck closer to the tank so Corby can jump on it. When the people in the tank get suspicious, the girls use the dead body as a puppet to make it look like everything is fine. Afterward, Ano drives the vehicle further to move next to another truck carrying most of the soldiers, and the girls immediately open fire to kill them all while Ano shoots the driver. As the truck falls off the road, the people in the tank notice the danger and begin going faster. Corby is still on top and starts hitting the door with his pikas, so the tank suddenly stops to make him fall. Wolf comes out to open fire on him, but Corby quickly climbs back to the top of the tank and begins fighting Wolf hand to hand. After exchanging a bunch of savage hits, both of them fall on the ground and the tank leaves with just Bruno and Schutz. Corby hits Wolf a few more times, but before he can kill him, two more soldiers arrive on a bike. As soon as they see Corby, they recognize the legend and run away. Corby uses the bike to go after the tank, and for a second Wolf thinks he's safe. But at that moment the armed women show up for their revenge. Eventually the tank stops to meet with a pilot that has a working plane, but he only has room for one person. Bruno doesn't hesitate to kill Schutz and escapes with the pilot in the plane, but suddenly Corby shows up in the bike. Immediately opening fire, he only manages to break the windows before the plane takes off. So he drives right under it with his pikas held high. Bruno looks down and notices the bike is moving. So he assumes they left Corby behind, but actually the bike is empty. It turns out Corby is holding onto the plane with the help of his Picasso. While he tries to change spots, he almost falls, but he manages to hold onto a wheel and begins making his way inside by breaking a hole on the floor of the bomb room with his Picasso. Bruno hears some noises and the pilot blames it on the plane being old. But Bruno is skeptical and comes to check. As soon as Bruno opens the door, Corby jumps on him and starts a fight. Their punches and kicks are absolutely vicious, and while Corby is more skilled, he is heavily wounded, and that allows Bruno to overpower him. Bruno gets frustrated because Corby won't give up or scream, and uses a static line to hit him harder as he wonders why Corby won't die. When he tries for a faster hit with the metal end of the line, Corby catches it with his hand and connects it to the bomb before releasing it. Bruno falls along the bomb, and when they hit the ground, they instantly explode. Corby wants to rest, but suddenly the plane begins shaking and falling. It turns out the pilot had been hit by a stray bullet and has finally died. Desperate to survive, Corby grabs the gold and straps himself upright before the plane crashes into a swamp, creating another explosion. Meanwhile, a Finnish unit gets ready to attack because they see a German tank approaching. However, this turns out to be Ano and the girls, who bring Wolf tied to the cannon back to the swamp. The water helped Corby survive the crash, and now he's climbing out with the help of his Picasso bag of gold still in hand. Some days later, Corby makes it to the city of Helsinki on the Nazi bike with his dog as company. Bloody and battered, Tommy enters a bank where he dumps his gold nuggets on the counter. The other customers are smartly dressed and look at him in wonderment. He finally speaks for the first time in the movie, asking the teller to exchange them for large banknotes, explaining they will not be as heavy to carry as the nuggets have been.